In a quiet corner of our old house, where the air was always filled with the aroma of freshly brewed tea and a light dust from the books on the shelves, I sat at the kitchen table and pondered how sometimes small pranks can liven up everyday life. My husband, Alex, was a predictable man, like the clock on the wall. Every morning he left for work at the office, where he dealt with financial reports, and in the evening he returned with a tired smile, hugged me, and asked what was for dinner. We had lived together for 8 years, and this routine, though cozy, sometimes seemed too even to me, like the surface of a lake without a single ripple. I decided to joke, to shake him up, to awaken that spark that once burned brighter, when we first met, at that noisy party with friends, where he danced with me until morning, whispering silly compliments. The idea came suddenly, while watching an old movie about jealous spouses. There, the heroine found a letter and started a scandal, but everything ended with laughter and reconciliation. What if I slip Alex an anonymous message, I thought, giggling to myself, imagining his surprised face. Nothing serious, just a light tease to add some spice to our life. I took a sheet of paper, neatly printed on the printer, "I know about your affair." Without a signature, without details, pure provocation, calculated for a light fright and subsequent laughter. I folded it into an envelope that I found in the desk drawer, and hid it in the pocket of his coat, the same one he wore every day to work. Inside, I rejoiced, here he would find it, panic for a moment, and then we would laugh together, recalling this episode over a glass of wine. Alex returned home later than usual, with a slightly rumpled look, as if he had spent the whole day in tense negotiations. I didn't attach importance to it, work, stress, the usual thing. He kissed me on the cheek, threw his coat on the hanger, and immediately headed to the living room, where he turned on the TV, switching channels without much interest. I was preparing dinner, simple cutlets with potatoes, his favorite dish, adding spices for flavor, and listened to the news about the economy with half an ear, which always interested him. Inside me, anticipation warmed. When would he reach into the pocket? Maybe tomorrow morning, before leaving, or right now. But fate decided otherwise. He got up to take the phone from his coat, and that's when the envelope fell to the floor, rustling on the parquet. I watched from the kitchen, holding my breath, my heart beating faster. Alex bent down, picked it up, looked around, no one nearby except me in the distance, and opened the envelope with caution, as if expecting a catch. His face changed instantly, his brows furrowed into a gloomy line, his cheeks paled, as if he had seen a ghost. He read the note once, twice, crumpled it in his fist with such force that the paper crunched, and shoved it back into the pocket, trying to look calm. "Something wrong?" I asked innocently, coming out with the plates, trying to hide a smile. He shook his head, but I noticed how his hands trembled when he took the fork. Dinner passed in tense silence. He picked at the food, not lifting his gaze, and I chatted about trifles. About the neighbor, who got a new dog and now complains about barking at night. About plans for the weekend in the park. Inside me, anxiety grew, the joke succeeded too well. Or was it something else, something I hadn't considered? At night, he tossed and turned in bed, sighing and turning over, and I lay awake, reflecting on his reaction. Maybe he took it seriously, I thought, staring into the darkness of the ceiling. But why? He has no reason to panic, we trust each other. Memories of moments from our life came, how he helped me with work when I was sick, how we traveled around Europe, sharing secrets under the stars. In the morning, Alex got up early, dressed silently, without even glancing at me, and left without breakfast, leaving the coffee untouched. I found the crumpled note in the waste paper basket. He tried to get rid of it, but didn't burn it, didn't tear it into small pieces, as if afraid it would return. Strange, this wasn't like him. All day I couldn't concentrate on work. As a freelancer, I write articles for magazines about family psychology. The irony of fate hit the mark. I wrote about trust in marriage, about how it is built on honesty, and I myself felt it slipping away, like sand through my fingers. In the evening, he returned with a bouquet of flowers, scarlet roses, my favorites, with drops of dew on the petals, but nervousness slipped through in his movements, like a person hiding a secret. "This is for you, just because," he said, kissing me longer than usual, with a note of desperation. We sat down to dinner, and I decided not to hold back anymore. "Alex, something happened. Yesterday you were so distracted, as if your thoughts were somewhere far away." He froze with the fork in his hand, then put it down and sighed deeply, as if gathering strength for a jump into cold water, where unknown depths await. "Let's talk," he said quietly, his voice trembled. We moved to the living room, sat on the sofa, where we had spent so many evenings in embraces. He took my hand in his, and I felt how cold it was, like ice. I must confess to you," he began, looking at the floor, avoiding my gaze. My heart pounded. The joke grew into something serious, something I hadn't planned. "Yesterday I found the letter. And it's true. I cheated on you." The words hung in the air, like smoke from an extinguished candle, thick and suffocating. I stared at him, not believing my ears. The world around swam. "What? How? When?" it burst out of me, my voice broke. He let go of my hand, stood up, and began pacing the room, telling jerkily, like at confession, words flying out hurriedly. "It started 2 years ago, at a corporate party in the office, where champagne flowed like a river, and music drowned out doubts. She, a colleague from another department, Olga, young, ambitious, with fire in her eyes and a smile that promised adventures. First flirting over a glass, then meetings in cafes after work, then more than it should have been. I didn't want it to go so far," he muttered, rubbing his forehead. "But she got pregnant. We have a child. A boy, he's a year old, named Max." The world around me spun like in a whirlwind, the room narrowed to a point. I sat, squeezing the pillow so that my fingers turned white, and tried to comprehend. A mistress, a child. My husband, the father of someone else's son, hidden from me. You're joking," I whispered, my voice trembling. "This is impossible, we were planning our own family." But his face, full of guilt and fear, with drops of sweat on his forehead, said the opposite. It was the truth, bitter and merciless. He continued, words poured in a stream, as if a dam had broken after long restraint. "I tried to end it, told her that I love you, but she threatened to tell everything, show evidence. And then the child was born, and I couldn't abandon him, leave him without a father." I stood up, feeling anger rising in a wave, overwhelming the shock. "And you were silent. For 2 years. And I here, built plans for our family, dreamed of children, of the future." My thoughts raced chaotically. How did I not notice? Those late returns, excuses about overtime, sudden gifts without reason, everything fit into a mosaic of betrayal, which I ignored, blind from trust. He dropped to his knees before me, grabbing my hand. "Forgive me, please. I love you, it was a mistake, a stupid weakness." But the shock was too strong. Like an electric shock, I pushed him away and went to the bedroom, locked myself, turning the key with a click. I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, where shadows from the lamp danced, and an inner voice whispered accusingly, "Is this my fault?" I slipped the letter, awakened demons that were dormant. Guilt mixed with fury. How dare he? Our life seemed ideal, the house we bought together, furnishing it with love, weekend trips to quiet towns, dreams of children, of joint old age. And now everything collapses, like a house of cards from a gust of wind. I heard him walking behind the door, muttering apologies, knocking quietly, but didn't open. Let him suffer, like me. In the morning, I came out, gathering strength. My face was pale, but my gaze firm. He sat in the kitchen, not having slept all night, with dark circles under his eyes, like a man who had lost everything. Tell everything, I said coldly, crossing my arms. Without concealment, without lies. He nodded, poured himself coffee with a trembling hand, spilling some on the table, and continued, his voice hoarse. Her name is Olga. We met secretly, in a rented apartment on the outskirts, where no one knew us. And then, when the child was born, she demanded stability. A house, to raise the son in normal conditions, without wandering. I froze, my breath caught, and you. What did you do? He lowered his head, looking into the cup. I took the money. From your parents' account, the one they saved for years. It was like a punch to the gut, the air left my lungs. My parents, elderly people, who had saved for old age all their lives with the persistence of ants. Father worked at the factory, bent his back at the machine, mother, a teacher at school, where students changed, and the salary remained modest. They set aside every penny so as not to be a burden to us, dreaming of a small house by the river. The account was joint. I had access as a trusted person, but never touched that money. They were sacred. Alex knew the password. I shared everything, trusting completely, as a spouse. How much? I whispered, feeling the world darkening at the edges. How much did you steal? He named the amount, huge, almost everything that had accumulated over decades. I bought a house for Olga and the child. In the suburbs, a quiet place. I thought I'd return it over time, from salary, bonuses, investments. I jumped up, screaming, my voice echoed off the walls, you stole their inheritance. For your mistress and illegitimate son. They are now without anything, on the edge. Anger overflowed me. I paced the kitchen, clenching my fists until it hurt, knocking over a chair. Parents called yesterday, complained about rising prices, about how hard it is to make ends meet, asked for advice on budget. And I thought it was an exaggeration, age-related whims. Now it's clear, empty account, empty promises, their dreams trampled. Guilt burned inside, like acid. I didn't check the balance, didn't notice suspicious transactions, trusted blindly. How could you? I sobbed, tears streaming down my cheeks. They trusted you like a son, invited to holidays, shared secrets. Alex tried to justify himself, his words sounded pitiful. I planned to return. Took a loan at the bank, but interest ate everything, and then delays with salary. His explanation seemed empty, like an echo in an empty room, without soul. I imagined my parents, father, hunched from years of hard labor, with calloused hands, mother, with her quiet smile and warm hugs. They saved for a house by the river, for a calm old age with books and a garden. And now, poverty, dependence on a meager pension, perhaps even the need to ask for help from me. You destroyed their life, I said, my voice trembling with rage. And ours, our family, everything we built. We sat silently, time stretched viscously, like syrup, the silence interrupted only by the ticking of the clock. I pondered feverishly, what next? Divorce, to erase him from life. Police, to punish for theft. But first, parents, need to tell them the truth, apologize for my blindness. The shock retreated gradually, giving way to cold calculation, like ice binding a river. Leave, I said finally, my voice even but firm. Pack your things and go to her, to your new family. He cried, begged for a chance, crawled on his knees, but I was adamant, like a rock. The door slammed behind him with a final slap, and the house emptied, echoing my pain. Left alone, I took the phone, dialed my parents' number, my fingers trembling. Mom, Dad, come to me. There's an important conversation, not over the phone. My voice sounded even, but inside a storm raged, fear, guilt, determination. How to tell them? How to explain that their savings, the fruit of a whole life, went to someone else's family, to a house for my husband's mistress? Guilt pressed like a stone on my chest, not letting me breathe. I walked around the house, touching familiar things. A photo from the wedding, where we smile carefree. A cup with the inscription "To the best husband," which he gave for birthday, books that we read together. Everything seemed fake, like scenery in a theater, behind which lies hid. Parents arrived in the evening, worried by my tone, with bags of fruits and homemade jam, as always. We sat at the table, I poured tea, the aroma of herbs calmed a bit. "What happened, daughter?" asked mother, she, taking my hand in hers, wrinkled and warm. I inhaled deeply, gathering strength, and began, "Alex. He betrayed us all, me, you." I told about the letter that I slipped as a joke, about his confession of infidelity, about Olga and the child. Their faces changed, from surprise to shock, eyes widened. "And when I got to the money, to the theft from the account, father," he paled like a sheet, "mother," she cried quietly, tears dripping into the cup. "How could it be?" whispered father, his voice broken. "We trusted him like our own, shared table and roof. We talked all night, words flowed, interrupted by pauses and sighs. Mother," she stroked my hair, like in childhood, when I fell from a bicycle, "don't blame yourself, dear." Father, he was silent for a long time, squeezing the cup so that knuckles turned white, then said, "This is a blow, but we are strong." Guilt ate me from inside. "This is my fault. I didn't watch the account, trusted blindly." But they shook their heads. "No, this is his sin, his choice." In the morning, father, he, gathering himself, suggested, "Need to act. Check the account officially, maybe not all is lost, maybe there's a trace." I nodded, feeling a surge of determination, like fresh wind. Shock was replaced by anger, pure, directed, like an arrow. Days stretched in a whirlwind of emotions, like autumn leaves in a storm. I checked the account online, empty, as Alex said, balance zero, transactions hidden. Called the bank, where the operator sympathetically explained that transfers were anonymous, to dummy accounts, but details can be requested. "We'll find a way," I thought stubbornly, searching for documents in cabinets, sorting folders with statements. Inner monologues didn't subside. Why didn't I see the signs? Those business trips that lasted longer than usual, gifts without reason, his detachment in the evenings. Anger at him mixed with pity for parents. They aged in these days, wrinkles deepened, steps became heavier, but they held on, supporting me. One evening the phone rang, an unfamiliar number, but I picked up. "Hope? This is Olga. We need to talk," without shouting, like adults. Her voice was calm, but with a note of fatigue. I agreed to meet in a cafe on neutral territory, so as not to involve parents. She came with the child in her arms, a cute baby with curly hair, a copy of Alex, with his smile. He cooed, reached for the spoon, and I felt a prick. This could have been my son. "He told you everything?" she asked, rocking the boy. "I didn't want to ruin your family, but..." "House, child, life doesn't wait." I looked at her, feeling a mixture of jealousy, disgust, and unexpected pity. "Did you know about the money?" I asked directly, without preludes. "About where they came from?" She nodded slowly. "He said it was his savings, accumulated over years." I believed. Why dig? Lie, solid lie, but sincerity slipped in her words, or was it a mask? Returning home, I cried bitterly into the pillow, tears soaking the fabric. Parents supported, father, he, hugged silently, mother, she, made tea with mint. "We'll survive," said father, he, firmly. "The main thing, you're strong, we're together." But inside I boiled, need to return the money, punish him, not let him go without consequences. The plan matured gradually, lawyer, police, maybe even press, if needed. Emotions alternated, slow reflections on the past, on happy moments that now seemed a mirage, quick flashes of anger when I imagined him in that house. Weeks later, rummaging in Alex's things that he left in haste, I found crumpled receipts for the house purchase, address, amount, deal details. Time to act, I decided, squeezing the paper. My heart pounded as I imagined him there, with Olga and the son, in the house bought with stolen money. The anger that I suppressed flared with new force, but now it was cold, purposeful, like a blade. I wasn't going to just cry or scream. I wanted to return what belonged to my family, restore justice. Parents slept in the next room, their quiet breathing reminded me of the fragility of their world, which I didn't protect due to my naivety. Guilt still burned, but I decided it wouldn't be my anchor, but fuel for the fight. In the morning, I called the lawyer, father's acquaintance from old times, a man of old school, who spoke slowly, weighing every word, but with confidence accumulated over years of practice. Hope, he said, listening to my rambling story, full of details and emotions, the case is complex, tangled like a web, but not hopeless. If the money was transferred from your family account without consent, there's a chance to prove fraud, embezzlement. Need documents, statements, proof of access, perhaps expertise. I nodded into the phone, though he couldn't see me, and felt determination growing, like a sprout through the ground. And the house, I asked, my voice strengthened. Can it be returned, confiscated? The lawyer paused, rustling papers. If we prove the purchase was made with stolen funds, yes, possible. But it's a long path, courts, appeals, examinations. Are you ready? The day passed in bustle that distracted from pain. I collected papers that could be useful, old bank statements, account contracts, even deposit receipts that parents kept in a tin box from cookies, with faded labels. Mother, she, sat nearby, flipping through photos from the family album, me with Alex at the wedding, shining with happiness, on vacation by the sea, where waves whispered promises, at parents' cottage, where we planted apple trees. How could he, she whispered, tears glistening in the corners of her eyes. We accepted him as a son, shared joys and troubles. Father, he was silent, but his clenched fists lying on the table said more than words, rage, disappointment. I hugged them both, feeling the warmth of their bodies. We'll manage. I'll fix everything, return every penny. In the evening, I went to the bank, where the air was filled with the smell of papers and coffee. The manager, a young woman with a tired gaze and neat hairstyle, listened to me attentively, without interrupting. The transfers were made through online banking, she confirmed, flipping data on the screen, fingers fluttering on the keyboard. But the signature is electronic, your login and password, everything looks legitimate. I gritted my teeth, remembering how I gave Alex access. We were planning house renovation, he helped with calculations. Can it be proven that it wasn't me? I asked, leaning closer. IP addresses, login time. She shrugged. If there are proofs that someone else entered the system, possible. But that's work for the police, for investigation. I thanked and went out to the street, where the wind tousled my hair, feeling the world around narrowing to one goal, return the stolen, step by step. At home, I opened the laptop and began searching for information about the address from the receipts, maps, district photos, reviews about the settlement. It was nearby, an hour's drive by car on the highway. I hesitated. Is it worth going there myself, risking a meeting? What will I say to Olga if she opens the door? Or to Alex if he's there, with a guilty look? But curiosity and anger pushed forward, like an invisible force. I took the car keys and drove, without warning parents, so as not to worry them in vain. They had already endured too much. The road wound through fields where grain swayed, illuminated by the dim light of lanterns. Twilight thickened. In my head spun an inner monologue. What am I doing? This is madness, dangerous. But I must see this house with my own eyes, understand what he sold our family for, our faith. The settlement turned out quiet, sleepy, with neat houses surrounded by hedges, and well-groomed lawns where children played ball. I found the needed address, a 2-story house with white walls, red tiles, and a small garden where asters bloomed. Soft light burned in the window, a baby stroller with toys stood on the porch. I parked across the road and sat in the car, observing, my heart pounding in my temples. The door opened, and Olga came out, holding the boy in her arms. He laughed ringing, reached for her face with chubby hands, and she sang something quietly, a lullaby. The scene was so ordinary, so warm, that for a moment I felt a prick of envy. This could have been my life, my house, my child. But lies destroyed everything. I got out of the car, inhaled the cold evening air, filled with the smell of earth, and headed to the porch, steps echoing loudly. Olga noticed me, her smile faded instantly, like a candle in the wind. Hope, she was surprised, pressing the child closer, instinctively protecting. What are you doing here? How did you find? I stopped a couple of steps away, need to talk. About the money. About the house that stood on stolen. She frowned, but nodded, come in, not on the street. Inside, the house was cozy, like a nest, children's toys scattered on the carpet, the smell of freshly brewed coffee floated, on the walls photos of the family, Olga, the child, and Alex smiling. He was absent, and I felt relief, not ready to see him, not now. We sat at the table in the kitchen, the child played in the corner with cars, humming quietly. Did you know the money was stolen? I began without preludes, voice firm. This is my parents' savings, their life, their sweat and blood. Olga paled, her fingers squeezed the tea mug until crunch. He said it was his money, she answered quietly, gaze lowered. I didn't know, I swear to you. When I learned he was married, it was already late. I was pregnant, in the 5th month. Her voice trembled, but truth sounded in it, or was it a skillful play? I didn't feel pity, only cold. You live in a house bought with their old age, with their dreams of peace. My parents now without anything, on the brink. She lowered her head, tears dropped. I didn't want this. But the child. He's not guilty of anything, he just wants a father. I looked at the boy, who built a tower from blocks, frowning concentratedly, and felt anger mixing with confusion, with pity for the innocent. This baby is not guilty of the father's sins, but my parents also didn't deserve poverty, humiliation. Where's Alex? I asked, changing tone. Olga shrugged, went to the city on business, said he'll return tomorrow evening. I stood up sharply, tell him I'll sue. And you too, if you don't help return the money, if you don't testify. She cried openly, but I left without looking back, the door slammed behind me. In the car, I gave vent to tears, not from pity for her, but from pain for parents, for myself, for shattered illusions. The next day, I met with the lawyer in his office, where stacks of folders piled on the table. He studied the receipts, statements, my notes of conversations with Olga, humming and making marks. Good news, there are traces of transfers, a chain, he said. Bad, Alex formalized everything on a dummy person, possibly through an intermediary. It'll be hard to prove his direct guilt without expertise. I clenched fists under the table. I'll find a way, pay for a detective if needed. The lawyer advised to file a statement to the police immediately, which I did at the nearest station. The investigator, an elderly man with grey temples and tired voice, listened to me and sighed. Cases of family fraud are the most complex, full of emotions and evidence. But we'll try, start with requests to the bank. Days stretched in waiting, like a thread pulled slowly. I lived as in a fog, work on articles, where I wrote about betrayal in relationships with new bitterness, conversations with parents by the fireplace, calls to the lawyer for updates. Mother, she tried to cheer me up, cooked my favorite pancakes with cherries, but I saw how she aged in these weeks, shoulders hunched. Father, he became more silent, often sat by the window, looking at the street where people hurried on business, and smoked a pipe that he had long abandoned. We'll manage, he said, but his voice sounded uncertain, with a crack. I blamed myself for every their sigh, for every new wrinkle. If I hadn't slipped that letter, maybe everything would remain hidden, and they would live in ignorance. But immediately drove away this thought. Truth always surfaces, and better now than when it'll be too late, when parents end up on the street. One evening Alex called, his number lit up, and I hesitated, but curiosity won. Hope, we need to meet, he said quietly, voice cracked. I want to explain everything, find a way out. I agreed, but chose a neutral place, a cafe in the city center, with a view of the bustling square. He came first, sat at the table by the window, nervously twisting a napkin, face haggard. I sat opposite, crossing arms as a barrier, speak, but without lies. He began stammeringly, words stumbling. I didn't want it to turn out this way. Olga. She pressed, demanded a house, stability for the son, threatened court for alimony. I thought I'd return the money quickly, invest, but the market fell, everything went wrong. You stole from my parents, I interrupted sharply. Their life, their dreams of quiet old age. How can you justify, after 2 years of deception? He lowered his head, shoulders slumped. I know, I'm guilty, a monster. But I want to fix it. I'll sell the house, return everything to the penny. I looked at him skeptically, heart squeezed. You think I'll believe? After everything you did? He pulled a folder from the bag. Here are documents. I already started the selling process. Realtor is working, deposit made by buyer. Money will go straight to your parents' account, under control. I took the papers, but didn't open immediately. Why should I trust you? You lied for years. He sighed heavily. Don't trust. But give a chance to atone, for the past. I returned home, studied the documents with the lawyer over the phone. Everything looked plausible, contract with realtor, house appraisal, transfer plan. But I didn't feel relief, only emptiness. Anger still boiled inside. He destroyed our family, trust, the future we drew in dreams. Parents, learning about his proposal, divided. Mother, she wanted to believe, whispered, maybe he repented. Father, he shook his head. A thief remains a thief, words are wind. I was with father, he Alex's words, empty sound, until money returns to the account, until justice triumphs. The police started investigation, but it moved slowly, like a turtle on sand. The investigator called once a week, reporting new details. Transfers went through several accounts. Part of money went to pay off Alex's personal loan, which he took for investments. I met with Olga again, in the same cafe, to understand her role deeper. She came without the child, looked tired, with shadows under eyes. Swore she didn't know about the theft. I thought he was successful, with bonuses. But her tears didn't touch me. You could ask where such sum came from, I said coldly. But it was convenient for you not to know, live in illusion. She was silent, lowering her head, and at the end whispered, I'll help if needed, testify. Months passed, tension grew, like a taut string. I hired a private detective to speed up the process. He was recommended by the lawyer, a middle-aged man with a penetrating gaze. For a fee, he dug deeper, found Alex's correspondence with the realtor in old emails, where he asked to hush up the origin of money, hide traces. This became a trump card, a golden evidence for court. The lawyer prepared a lawsuit, full of details, and the case began to move faster. Papers flew between instances. Parents supported me, but I saw their fatigue. Mother, she, complained about health more often. Father, he, became forgetful. We just want peace, said mother, she, once at dinner. Money won't return the past, won't erase the pain. I hugged her tightly, but they'll give you a future, without worries. The court hearing was scheduled in a month, and I prepared thoroughly, collected every scrap of paper, conversation records, testimonies. Alex called several times, begged to settle without court, offered a settlement, but I refused firmly. You'll pay for everything. Anger, guilt, determination mixed into one powerful feeling. I won't stop until justice triumphs fully. The house, bought with stolen, was sold, money frozen on a special account under court control. I looked at parents, at their tired but warm smiles, and promised myself, this is not the end. We'll return everything lost, and start anew, stronger. But the path was still long. In waiting for court, I plunged into memories to understand where everything went wrong. Recalled our first meeting. Alex, tall, with a charming smile, approached me at that party, offered a dance. We spun to the music, and he whispered, "You're my destiny." Then I believed, fell in love without looking back. The wedding was modest but joyful. Parents shone, father, he made a toast about trust. And now? I found old letters from him, hidden in a box. Love you forever. Lie, or was it true then? Inner reflections tormented. Maybe I was too trusting, didn't notice cracks. The detective brought new details. Alex had debts on loans even before the affair. Olga wasn't the first. There was a short fling a year earlier, but without consequences. This intensified anger. He was a serial deceiver. I shared with parents, and father, he said, we'll help in court, testify. Mother, she nodded, for our family. Olga, under pressure, agreed to give testimony. She didn't want to lose the son in scandal. On the court day, the hall was full, journalists, curious, our families. Alex stood pale, in a suit that hung like a sack. The judge, a woman with a strict face, read the charges. My testimony was clear. He stole not only money, but also trust. The lawyer presented evidence. The detective testified. Olga, trembling, confirmed, I didn't know about the theft. Alex tried to justify, I repent, I'll return everything. But the judge was adamant, guilty, sentence, reimbursement, fine, probation. The money returned to parents' account, plus compensation. We celebrated quietly, dinner, toasts to justice. Parents bought that house by the river they dreamed of. I filed for divorce, started a new life. Articles became deeper, full of personal experience. Met a new person, but now cautious. Guilt left, leaving lessons. Life continues, with new sparks.